We are here because we are dedicated to helping the entire CrossFit community. Determined to elevate coaches, box owners, athletes, and everything in between, we believe that this mission will begin right here, right now. While this time and this goal begins with you, our hope is that you take this fire ignited within you and weave it into your own life with the same unrelenting passion to give those you have the privilege of coming in contact with the best hour of their day.
I feel like it's a surprise party where we're all whispering about this person, and then he comes on, and now we're like, surprise! Tony, you ruined the good surprise. What movie? Come on, Tony.
You ruined the good. I don't know.
Big Daddy, dude. Big Daddy.
Adam Sandler, yeah.
Come on. All right. Speaking of Big Daddies, Austin Malleolo, you are, we appreciate you coming back on. These guys just have a ton of questions in general. We were just digging into the Russian kettlebell swing, and Jason said you have a great video in Ham Plan talking about the two different methods. So before we dig into some of the other stuff like cap that a lot of people have questions on, Devin, you want to ask your question about the swing? You think you can make it clear and concise for Austin?
Austin, bent, sorry, bent elbows or straight arms? For the Russian? Yeah. Well, I don't know how Jason deflected this question, because I believe Jason is an RKC expert, and I do remember him in 2000, maybe 9, training for the Russian kettlebell challenge. So
remember the workout we did together, and the only time you've ever said this to me, you said you might beat me in this workout. It was old.com. I think it was snatching and pull-ups. Long story short, I did not beat Austin in the workout.
But yeah, if I'm again, I think that when you're really truly looking at the Russian kettlebell swing, a little bent elbow I think is fine, because that's really not the focus, right? The focus is hip extension, glute and hamstring, with this a strong almost pull back down and a snap back down type of movement. So it's almost a secondary piece there. Now, for us CrossFitters that live in the purest world of, when the arms bend, the power ends type of thing. And this is just what it comes down to, is when you coach in a class, what information do you selectively omit when you're teaching things, right? Because the minute you give them an inch, they take a mile type of thing, so you say, oh, you can have your arms bent. Next thing you know, people are bending their arms just walking around the gym. So, I think as a coach, you just have to be selective with that. But I think in the purest of the movement, I don't think it is the end of the world. But I'm also not a kettlebell expert by any means. That's just from my experience, is that when doing Russian kettlebell swings correctly, it is a posterior annihilation movement, whereas like American swings are going to be a little more, full body, a little different type of feel.
Answer everybody's question. A political answer, Christian said. Well, the other thing you made me think of is eventually a lot of this stuff is going to transition to the snatch. We do have to bend our elbows, right? In the snatch, it's the kettlebell snatch. Did you guys watch Did you ever take Martone's kettlebell course, Austin?
Boom.
You took it?
Boom. That's all he says the whole time. Boom.
He does. Is he still around? I haven't heard from that guy in a while. Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's still around. I think he still does his things. He does a lot of private security and stuff like that too. But yeah, he's one of the few people that can, just talk about kettlebells and keep the level of excitement for however long you talk about kettlebells, and then he starts juggling them, and then that's when I'm out. It's the risk is too high. I just drop on my foot, and I'm a little nervous.
I'm sure you remember my ex-girlfriend Nikki. When we took the kettlebell course, he used her as the Turkish get-up.
Of course.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, a lot of people, I'm sure you're feeling these questions from all over the place, but a lot of people have questions about cap. Many of the people on this call are already involved in Ham Plan. So that was kind of the impetus of having you on again. Of course, you're always amazing at answering all the questions, but let's kind of focus there first. We also have James coming on in 2 weeks So whatever we don't address, I'm sure James can address. But
Yeah.
we want to put the participants. You want to put your hands up. I already see some going up. But before we start answering questions, you want to give us a little backstory or whatever you can share about how this ultimately came to be?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I think, I always say that the origin and backstory, actually started at, really seminars, right? And more, probably more specifically level twos, and, and traveling around and talking to gym owners and coaches about programming, and I guess, the deeper origin story is programming in general just started out. And I think a lot of people that have been around some time know that just, a lot of us would look at athletes and say, what are they doing? I should do that because it's working for them, right? Like, and 5 to 10 years ago, it's like, well, and we would get questions, what are you doing? And we would just start sharing that. And that turned into the programming marketplace that we see today. It was a simple organic question. And then a lot of people are like, well, I think we can package this up and make it nice for people to use and then follow. And then it was like, okay, well, not everyone is competitive, or not everyone has the same skills, obviously. So how do we make programming applicable to different skill sets, right? So coaching notes and scaling. And then for us personally on the hand plan, it was, I'll never forget the question I received, and it was from a coach at a gym or even a member. And they're like, I want to follow your programming, but how do I do that at my gym? Because the gym's not following that programming, because we didn't have affiliate programming back when we started. And I was fundamentally not okay with that. I was like, I'm not okay at having people not take class, right? That was a huge, and it was always a value of mine. It's like, no matter what, I want people taking class. And I was like, man, I didn't want to, be an impetus to a problem, right? Where like at my own gym, everyone takes class. So thus born, the affiliate programming. And then we actually shifted that everything started to follow the DNA of the affiliate program, where no matter what level or competitor or track that, you could walk into your gym, you could be a part of your gym and always be a part of class. And then from there, really the growth of programming became essentially the smallest part of what we deliver. It was coaching development and how do you implement this programming. And we all know that, a workout doesn't matter. What matters is how it's implemented. And how it's implemented is predicated on the coach. And therein lies, well, we have to deliver coaching development tools on a daily basis for a spectrum of coaches. Normally we think about oh yes, CrossFit is universally scalable and applicable to any athlete, or and where, no matter where they're at in their journey. The cornerstone of affiliate programming in our view is, can we deliver a tool that any level of coach can deliver an effective class? And that's really, really important. And that's the focus. And because I am and always will be a firm believer that, you take your level 1 and you can start coaching on Monday. And I know a lot of people get, kind of fired up about that, but none of us would be here if that wasn't the case. I wouldn't be here. Bosman, I'll never forget, said maybe 10 years ago, is that everyone starts out a shitty coach, right? And there's a beauty to that. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean we should be irresponsible, or ill-equipped, right? It's like day one of any job. None of us were good on day one of our job. We didn't even know where the bathroom was in the office, right? I remember working construction, and day one on the job, all I did was get the tools. I didn't know what a cat's paw was when my boss asked me what a cat's paw was, and I was petrified to ask. So I spent 20 minutes at the truck, and and then my boss yelled at me because what was taking so long to get a little a nail removing tool, right? I was not good on day one
either. Don't worry, we still don't know what that is. His wife does.
Yeah. So but so that mindset is something that we always try to keep in mind, is like, how do we deliver those tools? But then also, if we have really veteran advanced coaches, right? How do we add value to them? No different than in a class, right? Where I have a 10-year veteran CrossFit athlete that's, can do all the movements. They can do everything prescribed. I have to still, endeavor to make them better, to educate, inspire, and entertain them. while they're standing next to someone that is still petrified to walk in the gym, and they look at the rings and they look at you like you're crazy. I'm going to touch those things, right? So, and how do we handle them in the same class? That was the genesis of how we really created our programming tools. And you know, and fortunately, when Handplan was acquired by CrossFit, and that was, our values have always been true to CrossFit, and we've, you know, because that's what we do. We obviously, you know, James, myself, and Spencer, and Travis, you know, all, you know, three of the four have been on staff, you know, for almost 10 years. And so obviously we understand what our core methodology is, and we've never really wavered from that. And, you know, the beautiful thing about the programming marketplace is there are all different types of flavors and things like that. And we're not against, you know, those others existing, but what's important to us is that we're always true to CrossFit. And for those of us that have been around a long time, we've probably experimented with all different types of things. And normally we come back to, all right, variance, functionality, intensity, you know, 3 to 4 times a week is really effective. And we've all, you know, and, you know, I put it this way, I never fault anyone for trying different styles of programming in the pursuit of trying to learn something better either. That's the true CrossFit way, right? So when people are like, hey, I do strength and Metcon, and you know, and everyone's like, aren't you against? I'm like, well, no, I'm all for trying stuff out. What have you learned? Well, that's all I've done. That's all I raise the eyebrow to, is like, well, maybe you should try something different. Maybe you should, you know, practice, you know, and we've all been there, right? We've all worked out way too much because we thought volume was the answer, right? Well, it makes sense, right? Like, oh, more is better. More adaptation, more stimulus, it makes sense. And then we realized, well, maybe I'd like to, you know, not have my knees hurt or my shoulders, you know, feel like they're going through a cheese grinder all the time. Like, oh yeah. So we learn this stuff, and that's important. And we as coaches go through that. And CrossFit is a contrarian culture by nature. So I think that's also important too, is that, and what we do at, you know, my most exciting aspect of CAP is that we can push the envelope because we in 3 days will sync with CrossFit.com. So all affiliates will be following the .com workout, and we're going to be giving robust tools on how to implement that. And .com, since its inception, has always been the pillar of variance, right? And that's the beautiful thing about it. I mean, every one of us on here has seen .com workouts, and you're like, that's crazy. And then we look back, and some of that stuff that we thought was crazy, we implement regularly into our programming now.
Yeah.
Right.
Handstand walk, 5K runs, you know, all of those types of things.
I mean, all that. I mean, even like 10 years ago. I mean, like, there are workouts that were written 10 years ago that are devastating to this day, right? Like, there are timeless things. There are also workouts that we will never see again, too. You know, like, that's the beauty of programming. But I'm excited about that, and because the workouts one thing, but everyone's like, well, how do I implement this, right? That's really what our focus is. And then how do we make it fun? Oh, I mean, because it doesn't matter if people aren't having fun. It doesn't matter if people aren't getting better. And that's the North Star right there.
The best hour of their day. In
Yeah.
my opinion, anyone that doesn't agree with that statement is dumb. Just dumb. So
Yeah,
I think I did that on the podcast. But did you guys see that Stu Brower, what Stu did yesterday? Did you guys see that? Somebody took my picture, Austin, and spoke in front of my picture, disagreeing with that it has to be with the best hour of their day.
Well, yeah, you know, so
Austin,
again, I don't like
to disagree with you right now. He's trying to
no,
stay.
no I don't, you know, all I can say is that we're in the service industry, right?
Exactly.
And we're in service to our people.
That's
and you know, I've always said this at my gyms and no matter at seminars, is that we would never be here without our members. We don't matter. Our members matter.
You mind if I steal that?
Say that?
You mind if I steal that?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, nothing. Yeah. I mean, most likely I've stole it from someone smarter or just, you know, or better, which is most people. Yeah, you know, I think that's really, really, you know, and my role at CrossFit, you know, as you know, is with the affiliates is that the only thing that matters are the affiliates to me, right? And that's because we don't exist without our gyms. We have to listen, we have to learn, we have to grow, and of course we're not like, and this is the same thing with members, right? It's like we're not always going to make everyone happy, right? Like And it's devastating when people aren't happy. Like for us as affiliate owners, how devastating is it when you get bad feedback from your members? Like you work your butt off and then you get a piece of feedback and just breaks your back, right? And it just, I mean, it's exhausting sometimes. And certainly over the past year and a half, it's been even more because seems like it's been harder to make everyone happy, depending on, the restrictions we've dealt with. But I always look at that as, well, that makes us who we are because we care, right? And the expectation is that we do a great job, is that people are seeing results and they are happy. So when people say that, it feels good, but you're like, yeah, I did my job, right? And then when people are not satisfied, the first thing that comes to mind is, man, that's it hurts, it's painful, whatever it might be. But then the next thing needs to be, how do I do better? What can I learn from this? Right. So yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I've not always been that way either. Like I think back in the day, Jason, I was super high strung as a coach, as a gym owner, to the point where it's like just very regimented. And now I'm almost the opposite, where it's like, if you show up late and if you leave early, I get it, because fitness is not the main focus of your life, and nor should it be, right? I mean, CrossFit was designed for the fitness minimalist, right? Like, and you read that in some of the original writings, is that what you can do in under an hour is unreal. That's why we love CrossFit. Right? It's so potent, right? And that's what's so special about it. So I try to remember that, and that people's lives matter, right? So their kids and other things, and just be respectful, right? I always just say, at least walk in the door and look stressed out and look rushed, and I'll buy it. Like that's all. I'll buy it. Like you just like look frazzled and we're good. Let me know that you got to go. I'll clean up your gear for you. Just let me know, right? Be like, hey, I got to run. Cool, love you, got it, right? Like, because it always comes full circle, right? Because if you treat them with respect, they'll treat you with respect. And if not, your members will take care of them too. You guys know that. Your members are your best advocates. So if they, they'll take care of the riffraff, and they usually won't show up, after a time, because, CrossFit is a vocal community, and they take care of their own.
I love it. I'm loving it. I'm just taking notes. Yeah, you are a different human being from when you and I were working together, not just at the box, but on seminar staff. And I have two questions. A couple of these guys get really upset if I derail the conversation, so I don't want to go too far off the rails, Devin. But first question, how is your body feeling now that you have shifted from crazy high volume training, the games and beyond, to more of I see you running, with a baby on your shoulders, right? So like, how has your body feeling and responded to it?
I mean, I think it's, I would say I feel like I've always kind of felt, from the sense of, just some nagging injuries from competing, right? So like, like little things. I don't snatch as much. Yeah, both my wrists are pretty bad. So like, I don't snatch as much, but I still like snatch once a month, just for pure ego, to prove to myself I can still snatch 225. Probably shouldn't, but I just do it, right? Like honestly, most of it is an emotional, mental piece. It's very less physical. I'm not as like perpetually sore as I used to be, right? Things like that. But I would still say I definitely struggle emotionally from like the fact that I'm not doing enough. I would say it's sort of like it's definitely from competing for 10 years, training at the peak, 5 or 6 hours a day, still being emotionally okay with just like work. I work out at 5 a.m. every day and not getting a second session in.
Is that all you're doing, that 5 a.m. session in your garage for the most part?
I try to get in 3 double days a week. That's my goal. Days are pretty busy now. But so like yesterday I had 30 minutes in between meetings. So I was like, all right, I'm going to get the front squats in that were on cap this week. I was like, I sneak that in 5 sets of 10, and I was able to do that. And I just built up, I didn't, my warm up was the first set, right? It's like everything we tell our athletes not to do in class, right? Like my working sets were not at 80% to start, but so I try to get that in. And honestly, it makes my afternoon and nights better when I do that emotionally. So it's less physical. It's more of an emotional thing. I really enjoy, like on the weekends, I try to make it a point to like have Haley outside. My daughter's Haley, when I'm working out, so she can see working out and fitness. That's super important to me. And, now she'll like last week she'd run with me, and then she asked me to pick her up. So like, yeah, I don't care about my times. I mean, I just go as hard as I can. I don't like pacing. So I still am an idiot when it comes to that stuff. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you just, you have to go like, make sure that your dog doesn't run out in the road or something. And it's not like I'm going to be upset that my training's ruined for the day because, my time is 30 seconds off. Like, those days are long gone.
So with that being said, I had a call with Paul Tremblay yesterday, and he mentioned he may be making a run at the Masters. I know you're approaching that age, Austin. What are you thinking?
Well, so you guys speak with James, what you said, in a week or two. So, and I'll have to tee it up. So James Hobart competed, he got second in his age group, but I also know how much he trained. So he set the bar, and he didn't train at all. Like he trained maybe even less than I do and Paul does. So just so you know, James is a very gifted athlete. He's always been able to do things like that, which is obnoxious. So I can't do more than that, because then it'll be like, well, you train more than me, right? Like, so and that's how we, of course, so I have this conundrum. So yeah, I mean, I'll train, and of course I'll go through the open, and I'll go through the entire process, because it's no matter, and if you end up at the games, and you end up at the games. So
And next year, when do you turn 35 or 34?
Yeah, next year. So I'm 34. So he's almost exactly a year older than I am. So he's June, I'm May. So I mean, he's as literally as young as you could ever have been in a Masters category too, because he turned 35 in June.
I mean, well, first of all, I hope there's no like weirdness between you and Jersey Tony, because Jersey Tony's, competitor, and he's thinking about going Masters too. So if any of that's happening on this call, I like to, but anyway, no, it's so funny because James showed up in 2009. Neil Thompson, remember Neil from CrossFit Boston? He's like, this dude, I'm like, this baby faced kid is going to win. He wins. And here we are. Now he's a master. It's so crazy to me. All right.
Yeah. Quality of movement matters. If there's one thing that you like, it's like, I mean, when you move that well, it matters, right? Like, so that's the moral of that story.
Last question, unrelated to Cap. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you resigned from seminar staff due to your new position, or at least on the email it said something like that. How hard was that for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, when you say it like that, I'm like, I don't think I've ever actually publicly said that. I was more like, yeah.
We'll
So
edit that out.
yeah. A lot of it was just a function of responsibility, and then respect to seminar staff, of like with my role at CrossFit, within the gym org, and the responsibilities there, and then where that puts me for weekend work and travel. I just, you never want to overcommit and underdeliver, and the respect of how important seminars are. So it was a decision that, honestly, in the beginning I was like, oh, like, it was, of course, like, I'll be able to do it, right? Like, type of deal. And then like I was about a month in, I was like, okay, this is a lot different, in a good way. But luckily, I still have the opportunity, if I want to, if I shoot a request to do a seminar, I can still do that. So I'm not like, I wasn't fully kicked to the curb and the door slammed behind me, which is nice. I still have the opportunity to work a level 1 or 2, and, trying to actually plan some trips where, I might go to certain places. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to go somewhere, might as well do a seminar, right? Like, might as well, help out and do stuff. Certainly, like certain areas around the world where getting to those places are not super easy for trainers, and seminars don't always happen. So I don't think that I will never be a red shirt again, but I mean, doing 40 seminars a year for 10 years, which is what I did, it was, it's definitely a difference. So it's weird to be home on a Saturday morning. It's strange.
It still is for me too, being 2 years into the pandemic, and I'm like,
yeah,
so strange.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that's like, it was an ironic transition, right? Because the pandemic, obviously everything came to a screeching halt, which was the first time that's ever happened since I started from a seminar perspective. But then we ramped back up, but it was still much slower, right, than it was before, where I was working almost 4 weekends a year, 4 weekends a month. So I already had some natural progression of less, and so, and the pandemic created also, like, and I think this did for a lot of us in different ways of handling change, whether you like it or not. We have, and so it set me up to understand and how to handle that decision probably a little better, undoubtedly, than if it were just, sort of business as usual, and then I were sort of posed with that decision.
Well, I just saw your name there, and I know how integral you are. And we had at our last summit, you were one of the 4 or 5 trainers with, I think, over 300 seminars. Like, I've got my 200 patch, 300 plus. So it was just interesting to see, and I know that couldn't have been an easy decision, which is why I asked. All right, I want to dig into CAP, and before we do, I see Devin and Ryan have questions. Paula, please don't let me forget to let you speak up. But my box owner here sent me this PDF yesterday. It's titled 14. I don't know where he got it, but he's like, "What do you think of this?" And
That's CAP.
yeah, I don't know where he got this PDF. So I want everybody to be able to get it.
The portal.
The portal,
Yeah.
is that where you got it? Okay.
Yeah.
Fern makes fun of me because I still have an affiliate, but I'm not an affiliate owner, so I don't see everything. But man, pretty good shit, Austin. Probably the best I've seen in any programming, and that's just the PDF. With the data, I'm not even looking at the workout. It's the one that has like the chief on it, as I think it was Monday's workout. But man, really good stuff on there. So I'm not trying to bias everybody, but it's good stuff. I'm pretty sure I convinced him to switch over to it. So I think one question we're going to have here, and I don't know if it's what Ryan and Devin are going to ask, but what's the deal with Wodify? I know a lot of boxes are using us, for example, we use Wodify. So that could be one of the few barriers to switching. So what's going on there?
Yeah, so right now we're not integrated with them, but we'd like to be, but right now we're not. And integration, what that means is that where it automatically would populate into your account for your gym. So I mean, obviously, you can put the program into any platform, right? And just like, so there are only a handful of platforms that actually push, Spotify being one of them, right? So we're still working on that. There's just a lot of logistics and details there. But that's one of those things over time. Our goal is to make it as easy as possible. And that's one of those. But the reality is just, things of how do we easily integrate with other platforms, because there are a few main players, but we have a lot of affiliates, and affiliates have all sorts of membership management platforms, workout tracking platform software they use. But that's that one caveat, is how do we make it easier and save time and all that type of stuff. So that's 100% is top of mind. And little things that we want to do is for certain platforms, hey, here are some tips and tricks to input faster. We actually when we create it, so on 10.1, we're working on making sure that the web app will be friendly for copying into other platforms as well, from a formatting perspective, because we're aware that not everyone will have the ability to have that push.
Yeah, and something I've told other box owners is you can hire like a VA in the Philippines for $2 an hour. That 2 hours, for $4, they've done your week of putting it into Wodify. So would it make it easier? Certainly. Does it make it a complete barrier? Absolutely not. You can still have both. All right, Devin's gonna add. What were you gonna say, Austin? You were gonna add something there?
No. I mean that's spot on. I mean, and I know people that do that actually.
Well, because the guy in the corner there, Devin, has a list of people that he wants to kill, and I just got my name off that list, so I don't want to get it added back on. So, Devin, go ahead. What's your question?
So one of my questions was the Wodify.
He didn't deny the list, by the way. everybody. He did not tell anybody.
Well, I was going to, but we're 35 minutes into this call and we're finally getting our first question. So Jason's derailed it enough. And then my other question, a couple people have brought this up over the past couple of weeks.
You didn't answer the first
It was about Watify, but you already answered it.
Okay.
So a couple other people have brought this up, but what are your thoughts on people are saying that with everyone switching over to CAP, it's going to be used across a lot more affiliates and it's not going to be as varied as what we're used to? Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we put a lot of thought into this. So the thought process that, okay, let's just put a number on it. Say, all right, well, half of the CrossFit affiliates are starting to follow CAP. Well, how do we, or in my area, I got 10 gyms and, all of them are on CAP. How do we show differentiation? How do, between gyms, the vary from box to box? So I think there's a few things there. One, I don't look at programming and never really have as an opportunity for differentiation between gyms. It's because it's coaching, right? And the confidence in that, all right, well, if I have 3 gyms, my goal is they're doing the same programming. I'd still tell a prospective member to go to all 3. And never once have I ever said, hey, check their programming and see how you like it. I've always said, do they say hi to you when you walk in the gym? Do they have a plan to take you from a non-member to a member? And what is that process? Do you like the people? Is the community something you vibe with? The programming is obviously one thing there, but but what matters is how it's implemented in the coaching from that piece. So I think that I hope that that CAP actually can help that, right? And that's its purpose. Its purpose is to help coaches coach, give them more time, so on and so forth. But also the intent, and this is why CAP is not included in the affiliate fee by design, is that we don't want to make it mandatory. We don't want to tell gyms, hey, this is what you have to follow. We want it to be a choice. We still want gyms to, if they want a program or purchase other programming, you still have the opportunity to do so, no different than you did, 6 months ago. And that's important to us. Also, there's a robust programming market out there that we want to show that respect to, right? So we don't want to come in and completely flip that whole market upside down. So there's a few pieces to that, but I think that there's also a value to more gyms following similar programming. I look at it where, this notion of, a global leaderboard, and like back in the day, you'd follow CrossFit.com, and we had this connection. You put your scores on CrossFit.com, and we all did that. And having this connection from gym to gym is actually really cool. And it opens up some doors and opportunity for gyms to have some type of communication amongst each other of what they're doing and how they're doing it, what from little competitions and challenges and things to that nature. So I actually like that piece, and having that red thread, I think strengthens us it has the opportunity to strengthen CrossFit as a whole. That's what really excites me about it, but it's still rooted in this notion that it's fully our affiliates' choice. So I look at it like, well, if we do our job and we make this something that gyms want, they'll use it, right? That's something that in anything we do for gyms, it's, hey, like, it's here for you. And our internal charges, it needs to be amazing, or else our affiliates are going to skewer it, because that's the way our affiliates are. And it's got to work. It's got to jive. So it's a true testament to the efficacy of the product, and does it work for all of our gyms? And so I actually think it can be a real a value as opposed to a detriment. Because remember this: members walking off the street have no idea, and half of them will never have any idea of the workouts, its creation, where it comes from, or why we do it. People just want to look good naked and get their results, right? So, any preconceived notion that we think our members have of programming, or whatever notions they have currently, are because of what we give them as coaches. But no one's ever walked into my gym off the street and it's like, this is the programming I'm expecting to see at this gym. Do you guys offer it? No. People are just like, someone told me to come here. And then they look at your class and they're usually like, I can't do any of those movements. And then you say, don't worry, I'll take care of you. And then you bring them through some type of, a foundation or intro class, and, and that's it. And then they fall in, and they get intoxicated with this notion that they can actually get better at human performance. And they start chasing these performance goals as opposed to aesthetic goals. And that's what leads, CrossFit to be so effective. So I think and it has that opportunity. So really good question. And I could talk for too long about it. So
just one quick follow-up. Do you think it helps with drop-ins? So I'm sure all of us have been the victim of dropping into multiple gyms and we hit 2 front squat days in a row or something like that. Do you think that it helps knowing, hey, this is what my gym follows? Whenever I drop into this gym, I know that the program is going to line up pretty well?
Well, yeah, I think that with anything, there will be, and this is something, obviously, it's like having gyms that follow similar programming. Members will obviously seek that out, right? Or it's like, oh, like I can go to this gym, because we also offer, at home stuff and travel programming and things like that follows the DNA of the main class. So it will allow, members, as they're traveling for drop-ins, to start to select with that. So I think that's a really good point, that it is a value add for those within that CAP network, right? But also you could, in true CrossFit fashion, you could always kind of, hey, I want to try something different, or, I'm going to look at something different when I travel. There's always that value too. But, when I was at Reebok, we had a lot of members that traveled, and I will tell you that the biggest thing, they would always come back, and, oftentimes they never really spoke about the programming too much. They always spoke about the coaching, right? It was always like, well, they were good, but it was front squat day, and I know how shit my front squat is, and they didn't give me any corrections, one of those types of things. So, the people might seek out familiarity as they kind of know what to expect a little bit. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I think, going back to the original question, I think it's insignificant what other boxes are doing for their programming, right? Doesn't matter if every box in the world is doing the same programming, because that's just a small component of what actually goes on. Before I ask Ryan's question over there, you mentioned you're syncing with .com. What'd you say, on the 15th?
Yeah. Yep.
How are you handling the 3-on-1 off?
Yeah. So, it'll basically, obviously, so programming will be 7 days a week, no matter what. So, when we see our week of programming, we, James, who's in charge of sort of that whole vision, will make sure that the 7 days flow appropriately. So if you follow CAP, you'll obviously be getting more workouts than you'll be seeing on .com. We'll also have to make changes too, because .com will always be true to .com, but it won't necessarily always fit into this beautiful kernel of an hour-long affiliate class. So there will be some subtle changes to some workouts depending on what we see come out on .com. And then, because there are different flavors and things that we see that show up on CrossFit.com, that we will always make sure it's an affiliate first program, right? So the goal is always, hey, what we deliver to affiliates needs to be easy to implement and from a logistical perspective. Fitness will always be achieved, but we also need to make sure we're not making anyone's life harder, we're making it easier. So that's how we'll handle that difference. 7 days always.
That's what I figured. Cool. Ryan, what's up?
All right. So you just mentioned the logistical. So my question is, what equipment templates are you working off of?
It's a great question. So the basic equipment template is, we just kind of go off, like, I guess, for being as vague as possible, it's like, the general CrossFit equipment, but knowing that there are the asterisks of not every gym has enough rowers or any type of machine for that matter. So when we write the workouts, there's always a logistical component of how to scale to other machines, how to scale to no machines. We do a low equipment version, we actually really turned this up a notch during COVID, when we were dealing with people's gyms that were fully closed to outside only to fully open. And so basically that's how we handle all of our class plans now, of like, hey, if you're outside with a rig or no rig, dumbbells, no barbell, that type of stuff. So we try to leave no stone unturned from that logistical piece. With that, there's always the notion of like, well, how do I handle the equipment that I have at my gym? I have stones or things to that measure. We do extra sessions throughout the week that are not to be done in class. Those are for, because everyone, not everyone. You have like usually 5 to 10 people that always want to do more. And so as opposed to you having to like come up with something or just say, do whatever you want, and they end up doing like the 12 days of Christmas 14 times in a row, you can actually give them some type of like, educated piece that also fits within the theme or the focus. And that's sometimes where we put in more machine stuff or that other equipment that you wouldn't have enough for a class, but for a handful of people or 1 or 2, you will as well. So that's how we kind of satisfy both ends of the spectrum. And that's come from a lot of feedback, quite honestly, of like, I just remember a good example is like at Reebok CrossFit One, we had all sorts of equipment, right? But not enough to run classes, but we had sandbags, D-balls and yokes and all this sexy stuff. But I had classes of 20 or 30 people. I didn't have, so we were always with this, traditional amount of stuff. But, and I know James put stuff in his, so oftentimes, so every day you'll see a video of James breaking down the whole class as well. And he'll sometimes put in those like anecdotes of like, today might be a good day to, give one of your advanced athletes a sandbag instead of a barbell for grace or something to that measure. So putting in those places to also lace in that type of fun stuff for your salty vets that, might want to mix it up a little bit.
I mean, on top of that, I would say maybe even Saturdays would be a good day to kind of throw in a different mix, right? Especially those are generally bigger classes. Everyone's just kind of there to have a good time. So that'd be a good day to like self-implement that kind of stuff.
They're not hiring Ryan. He's not going to hire you right now.
That's okay. I'm too busy, anyways.
Well, the Saturdays we've gotten a lot of feedback about partner workouts, and it's funny because partner workouts, one you see them, we put them in on Saturday or Sunday traditionally now, like, but those bring up a very emotional for people that love them or hate them. It's so funny, but we try to do them at least once a week, specifically on the weekends where you have less classes but higher volume in those classes. So how do you handle those logistics and that type of stuff? So it's
I love partner workouts. There's a period of time where I was like, I'm going to open a box that only does partner workouts. I think they're just so much because they're fun and everybody gets what they need out. If I'm Alston's partner, guess what? I'm going more often than I want to go. Right? Like he's going to be done if it's in a lot faster than I am. Yeah, well, you don't rely on my partner, Tony. You saw that picture, Tony, of the wall ball? I was jumping because there were synchro wall balls. I did a comp, no big deal, Austin. 3rd place, no big deal. You probably heard about it. You probably heard about it.
How many people competed, Jason?
I didn't keep track of all of that.
Okay.
So I was busy.
Okay.
But along the lines of what you were saying with Ryan, I think one thing that frustrates me, our box follows NC right now. They're based out of California. We're in Colorado, and they're like, cool, it's a 5K. I'm like, it's fucking February, dude. Like, not only is it freezing out, there's slush, there's ice. The gym gets disgusting if it's interval stuff. So is that the other thing? Are you factoring that in, knowing that you're in Massachusetts? Like you have to deal with that?
Oh yeah, we learned I learned that really early on because we were fortunate enough early on that the Hamplin, we had a bunch of high North Canadian gyms where it just seems like it's winter all year round at their gyms because they'd be like, hey, it'd be like May, and then they're like, yeah, still ice. Can't rock. Like, wow, all right. So yeah, we learned that really, and so and that really just comes into logistics too, where if you have gyms in certain areas of the world, running is a real big challenge.
Let's go to L3 Matt. Other L3 Matt.
Hey Justin, thanks for joining again.
Yeah,
I have a kind of coaching question on your perspective. I see CrossFit says a lot about good coaches and great coaches. So I don't know, what do you consider a good coach and a great coach? Like, I'm thinking about the 6 criteria we should be always striving for, but like, what's your thoughts on it?
So the difference between a good coach and a great coach, I don't know if there's a specific delineation or there's like a line in the sand that you cross over, quite frankly. But I would say that the best coaches I've seen have the ability to read a room and cater whatever's happening to the individuals in their room. They're able to meet the athletes in the class where they are, not the other way around. And I think that, so there's an emotional intelligence, there's obviously coaching intelligence, there's awareness. And the reason why that's such a big statement is because the predicated knowledge it takes to be able to do that is vast and unbelievable, right? Where it's the last thing that you're ever going to realize with coaches like that is their technical acumen or their ability to cheat, see, and correct. It is actually, you'd never even think about it. Because what you are actually, if you're in the moment, you forget that you're in class, you're enjoying the experience, you're having fun, you're getting warmed up and you don't even know it, and you're properly getting ready for a workout, and then you're hitting a workout with the level of intensity that's uncomfortable, that's not fun, but you're prepared for it. A great coach does that without you even thinking twice, and potentially even got you a little better, right? Refined a current skill or gave you a new skill, right? And that's a very, very challenging, and the best, there's not many that can do that. But for those that can, 5 people, 20 people, you coach that class very differently. We all know when we've coached like 2 or 3 people in a class and you're like, oh, it's hard. I'd rather coach 20 people than 2 people any day of the week, right? It's easier, right? Because energy is much higher. How do I bring the energy to a 2 or 3 person class and do it right? You're exposed, right? You can hide with a bigger class, right? Because you can just beat your chest, throw the music on, roll out a couple med balls, and fitness is going to happen, right? So that's the probably an ambiguous, not specific answer to that question, but it's a good question.
Thank you.
Very cool. 7th criteria of coach awareness. I like it, Ryan. Lucas. Last couple of questions. Austin's a busy man. Let's get Lucas and then Paula.
Hey, Austin, how are you doing?
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you.
Austin could definitely run for president, by the way, based on how he answers and looks at you. I'm going Malleolo Hobart 2024.
That's petrifying. No.
I think you're too young, actually. We'll have to wait till 2032.
What's up, Lucas? You got hijacked there.
Yeah. Just want to know what drives you and what's your why? What has kept you in the game for so long?
Good question, Lucas.
Yeah. So, I've often thought about the question is, what is my why? What is the purpose of what I do and why I do it? And to be honest with you, it's always been the same, but the opportunity and scale has changed. What I mean by that is I'll never forget the first time that you're with an athlete, a client, and you see the look in their face like they did something for the first time in their life, or you helped them, and you kind of get the goosebumps, right? And I mean, just remembering that stuff, and it was that moment that I realized how that fueled me, right? And that was and it was an addictive feeling that I can help people get better. And it wasn't about me, it was about them. And I realized I could help them, whether it was from a nutritional perspective or fitness or just whatever it might be. And then you start coaching CrossFit classes, like, wow, I can affect more than just one person. And then other people start helping each other, right? Because that's what our community does. And then from why did I start a gym? Well, I was like, I think I can help coaches and give coaches opportunity, because now I can help. Then it's just, it's the exponential effect. Seminar staff, even more so. And so it's always been the same piece for me, is that, and it just, that opportunity to support and help. it drives me. For me, it's something that I become like obsessive about it. And sometimes you got like, you get into the weeds, and that's where you can sometimes get lost. Right. But you have to pull back to the 10,000 foot view. I was at the games, a couple weeks ago, and just talking to some affiliate owners, and it was just like, just hearing about their stories and the challenge, these are emotional conversations. And it's like, and it just again reminded me of how important it is. Yeah, like we're doing a lot of work, but our affiliate owner matters. Whatever that story is, whatever their challenge, and that's like, it's no different when you're coaching seminars, right? You got to talk, like, how did that person get there? And then you hear about their how that this is a turning point in their whole life, right? It's a really powerful stuff. So that stuff, that's what fuels me and drives me.
Thanks.
All right. Last but not least, Paula wanted to say something. Paula, you may be muted, so unmute yourself, please. You can figure it out, Paula? Come on.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you, Austin, for coming on today. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I wanted to say that I really respect you as a coach, and all the things that you do and all the content that you put out there for all of us to consume. I wanted to bring up something that I hope is not a thorn in your side, but WOD on the Waves. Back before the COVID hit, I had heard about WOD on the Waves. I think it was from this podcast, or from this group with Jason talking about it, and decided to reach out to you before the second one. And I had emailed you saying I was a level 1 coach and just wanted to kind of be behind the scenes and learn from you and learn from what you were putting together with the whole thing. I thought it was an amazing business model. I've never been on a cruise before, but this one really seemed like something that was interesting and such a great concept. And I've always been one that I always wanted to be behind the scenes. I love how things are put together, and I admire your programming abilities, your coaching abilities, and I was really hoping to learn from you. And I wanted to acknowledge and kind of introduce myself, because I just introduced myself through email, and you did respond to me, and I really appreciated that. And we never got a chance to meet, and I never got a chance to work with you, but I appreciate you reaching back out to me, and was going to give me the opportunity, and just say that the way that you are so involved and how much you put out, it really shows how much you care, and how much you really desire to make the community better, make us coaches better. And hopefully someday I'll have the opportunity to work with you or meet you. But I just wanted to say thank you for all that you put out there for us.
Well, I appreciate that. It means a lot. And gosh, it seems like that was like 5 years ago when that came to a screeching halt. And unfortunately, but fortunately, everything was able to get officially, kind of canceled and that stuff. But that was a lot of fun. We were looking forward to it, but learned a lot. That was a huge lift. Of just like, how do you operationalize a cruise ship full of, CrossFitters and, all of the equipment, that minor detail. But yeah, that means a lot. And I'm sure that we'll cross paths again. Where are you located, Paula?
I live in Atlanta.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a lot easier to get to than like, Russia. So I'm sure we'll be able to, cross paths. Yeah.
I did have one quick question, and it's a quick question, but it's probably a very long answer. So I don't know if you have time to answer it, but just curious how you guys put together Ham Plan, and how, you get 3 different guys to come together to create such an amazing program agree. Did you not agree at first? Was it an easy partnership, or was it something that you guys kind of learned to work together on? How did that all come about?
No, yeah, it's a great question. And, so Spencer and I started the hand plan, and then James Hobart came on a few years in, and then Travis came on shortly after that. So, but with the three main people from a programming perspective, and to be honest with you, it was, programming's never been about ego for all three of us. It was always about trying to find each other's blind spots, listening to feedback in our community. So it was, and we're all really used to getting really harsh feedback from in all sorts of avenues. So making sure that we always kept each other honest, and so honestly, to be honest with you, that was the easiest piece of that. We work well together, and what the hardest piece is, as you grow, trying not, it's like the more people you program for, you're just going to get more feedback, and making sure that you distill it down, and figure out what are we going to make actionable, what's feasible and what's not. But that's really from a community perspective. But I think the biggest advice I can give anyone when you program is, it's not about you, it's about others. So having different perspective allows you to, everyone has a blind spot and a bias, because that's the nature of who we are. So if you can formulate a relationship to not have those blind spots or biases, you can, deliver something that's pretty special. So it's so it's always been an advantage to us. We've never had a hard time with that, which has been pretty cool. So, yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Very cool. Austin.
Thank you.
I know you have to run, so go ahead. Thanks again for hopping on, and we look forward to learning more about CAP and implementing it into the boxes. So thanks again, Austin.
So you never miss an episode of the podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel and on all major podcasting platforms at Best Hour of Their Day. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being a part of the best hour of our day. See you next time.